Take 3. So this idea we're talking about Lubavitcher Rebbe. He had the aura of Mashiach ben Yosef. He had that light. And that light is to be Mosif, to add on holiness. Yosef is Mosif. To add on holiness everywhere he goes. And it's through positivity. We spoke about the idea of focusing on the good. That's the aura of the Tzaddik. Positive. And it should affect the heart level. So Lubavitcher Rebbe was before he got married, before he was Rebbe, and he married into the Lubavitcher family, the Frierdiker Rebbe's daughter, the previous Rebbe's daughter. And tonight is Yud-Tet Kislev, so it's very appropriate to say a story from Lubavitch. Today is the Yotzai of Baruch Mezevich. Baruch Mezevich was the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, and I named my son after him, Baruch Yitzhak. And he used to give it to Levi Yitzhak B'ditchev. He used to give such mussar because he knew that in the world above, if someone didn't bring down Levi Yitzhak B'ditchev, there was a time that he needed to pass away because he was like Mashiach was already there. He was so holy, it was as if Mashiach was there. So they had to bring him down a little bit. So Baruch Mezevich used to bring him down. Yeah, and he was also the sandik for the Rabbi Nachman. So you should see what he said at Rabbi Nachman's bris. So he was the uncle Rabbi Nachman. So Baruch Mezevich, we can't massik, but if we go to another Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid Medrich, and the Balatanya, who was the Talmud of Maggid Medrich, the Maggid Medrich is outside tonight. It's called Yud-Tet Kislev. And the Balatanya was his main Talmud. He was the head, the Rav of the Talmudim, and he wrote the Shulchan Aruch Rav, the whole explanation on the Shulchan Aruch according to the Chassidish, And bottom line, he was a posek, he was a tzaddik, he was a mekubal, he was everything. He knew everything. He was an Ilui, a genius. When he came to the world, the whole world lit up. The Baal Shem Tov calls it Chai Elo. We made a celebration. So he was in prison and released on Yud-Tet Kislev. And he was able to, on that day he was released, he was able to go ahead, revealing all these deep Torahs like the Tanya and all this holy Svarim we have from him and all his descendants. So now we're holding by a story with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This is the 7th generation already, 7th Rebbe. And this is before he became the Rebbe, during the 6th Rebbe, Yosef Yitzhak of Lubavitch. Yeah? And he was making wedding, he was making chosna for his son-in-law and his daughter. And at this chosna was this bocher, this rabbinical student, whatever you want to call it, and with his father. And he wasn't Lubavitch, but he came. A lot of people came to see the wedding, and he wanted a blessing from the chosin, even though he wasn't the Rebbe, but he was the chosin, and he wanted a blessing. And his I get this all right. It's actually this long story. His what do you call it? Let's just make sure it's still going. It was cutting off, so yeah, still going. It's good. We're good. This time we're good. So he had a beautiful, beautiful son, this man, and who brought him something. But he was having some tests, and he knew that with the wars and things going on, it wasn't simple to stay religious at that time. There was lots of different groups pulling at the youth and taking them away from Judaism, from traditional Judaism, and the Jewish path, and offering all these new isms. So he asked the Rebbe for a blessing for his son, and the Rebbe, he said, he gave him a blessing. At that time he wasn't the Rebbe, he was just a chosin. And busy, like I said, as busy as he was on the night of the chosna, he could focus on this Jew, and he said like this. He gave him a bracha, and then he said, you should always remember the 5th night of Hanukkah in London. It's a very important thing for you. I didn't know what that was talking about. London, never been in London. 5th night of Hanukkah. Oh, I don't know, but it stuck in his head. Very strange thing to say. Fine. Anyway, after the war, Second World War, the Rebbe's in America now managed to escape from Paris. Frierdiker Rebbe managed to escape from Russia, and they're both sitting in America. And this bocher is now a man married after the war, is also in America, and he has a Satmar chassid. He's Satmar at that time there wasn't an argument, but the Satmar was still a different path to Lubavitch. And the Satmar chassid wanted a blessing from the Rebbe. Get that? Why? Because I think he was married or was getting married or he hadn't had children. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he needed a blessing. And he knew that his father had taken him to the Midnightrabbi when he was a chosen, and he wanted to go to the Rebbe now in America. And what the Rebbe used to do, the Frierdiker Rebbe, used to send whoever came there to his son-in-law, because the son-in-law was so good, holy. The Rebbe now, or was, he sent him to him, and he said you get a blessing from him as well. Fine. So he went into the Rebbe before he became the Rebbe, while the Frierdiker Rebbe was still alive, and this was in the late 40s, early 50s. And he came in, and he said, "Can I have a blessing from, I'd like to get married or children, whatever it was." So the Rebbe said, "Yeah, you can have a blessing." But remember, the 5th night of Hanukkah is very important to you in London. And he wanted to ask him what he was talking about, because he remember suddenly hit him. Whoa, he remembers me from his Chosna 30 years before. Yeah, or 40 years even. He remembers me from then. And not only that, he said exactly the same thing, but I didn't even understand him then. I want to know what he's talking about. I never found out. People told me some thoughts about the 5th night of Hanukkah. It's a weekday, and during Hanukkah always falls out on the weekday, and it's a Chassidish thing on the 5th day, so they make a whole story about the 5th day. It's always a weekday. Brother, let's learn, man. We can talk
you need to get a number from him.
after, please, because you've missed already so much. Learning first, yeah? Davening's also first, but numbers later. It's like this, the 5th day of Hanukkah always falls out on the 5th day. That's when we're having my party. The 5th night of Hanukkah, the 5th day, always falls out on a weekday. Never's on a Shabbos, never on a Rosh Chodesh. The 6th day is Rosh Chodesh, the 5th day is always a weekday. Always. And the Rebbe's made a big deal out of this, because he's bringing down the light.
Any other day could be a Shabbos or Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah, any other day of Hanukkah. The 5th day never is. So this idea that the holiness of Hanukkah is able to penetrate into what? Into the weekday. Into the day where you're dressed in your weekday clothing and you're worried about work and you're busy with the world. Yeah?
We're in the middle of Hanukkah.
Yeah, it's all good. That whole experience, Baruch Hashem, that whole experience of the 5th day of Hanukkah is tapping into this hidden light that we talk about Hanukkah with Yosef's light. His Mosif, he adds on a candle every day, lights up the world more and more. That's Yosef's avoda. He has a betochen and love in Hashem. We're talking about the Tzaddik with Yosef, his Mosif ala ichi, Mosif aholech, add a candle on every night. We spoke at the beginning of the class, just going over. So I said there's a certain light with Mashiach ben Yosef in the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And this was spreading the holiness to the whole world. It gets rid of atheism. You don't even have to go kill any Amalek. You just spread the truth of light in the world and everyone accepts it, because it was such a tzaddik. All the different parliament people from England, the presidential people, everyone knew the Midnightrabbi was a real deal. Even Reb Bibi, our prime minister, I don't call him Reb Bibi, whatever. He spoke about the Midnightrabbi in what do you call it? In the speeches? In the speeches in America. What's it called when he stands up in front of the Senate? No, he speaks in front of the whole American Senate. Is that what it's called?
Congress.
Congress. Spoke in front of the whole American Congress. He mentioned about the Rebbe and quoted him, because he made a big impact on Bibi. It's not just political. He was a Yosef Asadik. He was the Mosif who brought Kedusha to everybody about the Rebbe. Whether you like the group or not, it's irrelevant. The Rebbe himself was a Sadik, and he brought Kedusha to everybody. So we already told a story where there was a young unmarried guy who came to the Rebbe in the beginning of the 20th century, the beginning of the 1900s, when he got married. The Rebbe got married, and as a chosin he gave a blessing to this man, and he said, we're just going over the story again for Max's purpose. He said, you should be blessed again, but he said you should remember the 5th night of Hanukkah is very important, especially in London. And he was like, he'd never been to London. It was during the 20th century's Europe. He's not going to London anytime. So why is the Rebbe talking about it? He couldn't ask him. He was a chosin, and he just had to go ahead. There was other people getting blessed. Anyway, he comes again, 30, 40 years later. He's a Satmar chosin. After the war, the Rebbe's in America. He wasn't the Rebbe still. There was a Frierdiker Rebbe, was the Rebbe, his father-in-law. And he comes into the Rebbe's room, and he gets a blessing for children or marriage or whatever it was. And he says, the Rebbe says, remember the 5th night of Hanukkah is very important to you in London. This is 30, 40 years later. He never knew what the Rebbe meant then as a student. And now as a married man and trying to build up a family again after the war, he didn't understand it also. Yeah? He didn't understand what it was the 5th night, but he couldn't ask him. It didn't come out. Fine. Anyway, Listen to this. So he had a friend. This is now 30 years later. This now man must be in his 70s. The Rebbe must be in his 80s. He had a friend who was crying to him that his daughter's marrying a non-Jew. He's dating a non-Jew. And you have to understand, by that point in that time in history, 30 years, it must have been in the 70s, the Satmar Rebbe was hardcore against what Lubavitch was doing with the filling campaign. It was a proper, disagreement. And the Satmar and Lubavitch weren't hanging out, you know what I mean? They weren't sharing Sharon.
They weren't staying together.
I'll tell you a joke the Satmar Rebbe once said. It's a funny joke. I told this to Alex Clare, if you heard of him. He liked this joke. In fact, did he tell it to me? Yeah, he told it to me actually. Alex Clare told me this joke. He said, what's pshat with the fish? He came for Shabbos one time. He said, what's pshat with the fish? He said, with the fish, the Rebbes, they all have fish in their tissues. You come to my house, Hanukkah, you're not getting any fish. You come to my house Shabbos, you get fish. Yeah? Fish is a big thing, Shabbos. So we sit with the Rebbe's tish, we have fish. You go to my Rebbe Malava Malka, you get a big piece of salmon, like this big. With the fruits around and the whole thing. So he wanted the salmon, fish. We like the talk about salmon in this class. Always somehow get to fish. So anyway, so fish. What's in the fish? It says it's the sparks of tzaddikim, sparks of righteous people. So a chassid says, I'm a Satmar chassid the whole way. So you go to the Lubavitch Rebbe, you say, I'm never going to go to the Lubavitch Rebbe. And the Lubavitch Rebbe said, I'm never going to go to Satmar Tish, ever. We're just two different things. And then what happens? The guy, he's a good Jew though. He's a righteous Jew. Just on that point, he's very closed-minded. Whatever, that's his path. He's very into that group. So that Rebbe. So he passes away and he gets reincarnated into a fish. It's such a thing. Yeah, and the sparks of tzaddikim end up in the fish. And he gets put on the tish of the Lubavitch Rebbe, and he's a Satmar chassid in the previous life. And the Lubavitch Rebbe eats him, and so do the Chassidim. Suddenly he finds himself, so the Satmar Rebbe, he finds himself on the Lubavitch Rebbe's tish. And then the Lubavitch Rebbe chassid never wants to go to Satmar, he finds himself on the Satmar Rebbe's tish. So they all end up being fish at the other people's tish. You know that? It's a good line. Fish at the other people's tish. You can't get away from being connected to other Jews, even if you. But anyway, at that time there was an argument, and Satmar didn't go speak to the Lubavitch. You know what I mean? To get blessings, it just didn't happen. But this guy, it was in his blood. His father put into him all those years and years before, and he'd got himself and saw blessings come true, and he knew that the Lubavitch Rebbe was the real deal. So he said to his friend, he was having a problem. He said, "You got to go speak to the Rebbe." He says, "There's no way I'm going to the Rebbe." He says, "But I'm telling you, the Rebbe's the one who can save your child. Satmar, as much as we're, a good Chassidus, but we don't have the network like the Lubavitch to get hold of your daughter. Because he didn't even know where she was. She was married to some Jewish guy somewhere. So he didn't even know. Anyway, so this is this. So the guy said, I'll go. I love the Rebbe, I'll go. So he went to the Rebbe, Lubavitch Rebbe. Now the Rebbe's like in his pinnacle, his 70s, 80s, 90s. He was like, big Rebbe, world Rebbe. It wasn't just some, this was a world Rebbe. To get in there wasn't easy. But this guy was, had contacts. He was an old school chassid from the war, before the war. He managed to get in. And he got into the Rebbe, and he asked for a bracha for this daughter of this friend. That was the main reason he went. And he asked for a bracha for his own family. And then the Rebbe said to him, remember, this, fifth night of Hanukkah. You guessed this part? Fifth night of Hanukkah is a very important night for you in London. And he wanted to ask him, but there was this was the time of the Rebbe. He was a big Rebbe. You had a few minutes now, and out. And he didn't get to ask him why. And he was trying to ask Chassidim fifth night's a big thing. The Rebbes give out money that night, and you lift up the weekday, and this whole idea of turning the Chol into Kedusha, that's Yosef, turning the weekday into holiness. The hours before Shabbos, the hours after, it's called Tosef to Shabbos. Tosef just means to add on. It's the same idea as Yosef, adding on holiness to the weekday. That's the idea of Hanukkah coming into the weekday, making it holy, making it lit up. Alright, all these different words are very nice. What does it mean, Lamaisa? London. I don't know. Maybe there's someone in it. Anyway, it happens to be a few months later he's in London. And it's gone out of his head, the whole story. He's in London, he's a busy guy, he's an older man, he's in London. And he meets the Lubavitch chassid, and he says, I want to ask you something. I just have this feeling. The Rebbe mentioned something one time about London. Have you heard of this girl from this such and such family? Could you be able to locate her? Because there was rumours that she was in London with her non-Jewish boyfriend, you know? And I happen to be here now, so maybe you can get hold of her. And you have to understand, this father was crying, so it did leave an impression on him. So he thought he might as well do something while he's in London. Maybe you could just the Lubavitcher somehow located her. I don't know how. Maybe she still came to some Jewish things here and there. She's still Jewish, you know. And the Lubavitch, they're very open door policy. Even if you're not marrying a Jew, they'll still let you into everything. You can be part of their community. You can still send if the children are Jewish, you can still send their children, even the non-Jewish father. You can still send them to, they're very open-minded. I speak to the Lubavitchers about these things. I get advice from them about these kind of, subjects. People that don't have okay marriages and stuff like this. They're the right people to talk to about it. Anyway, so he found the girl, and he somehow got hold of her number and arranged a meeting with them. And he came, this old yid who'd been through everything, and this young woman. And she came and she'd had a fight with her non-Jewish, so she was in a more open, vulnerable stage. Maybe that's why she'd reconnected to Judaism a little bit. And she came and he was singing and she cried and she talked out the whole story and she said, yeah, you remember me? Yeah, I remember you, you're a good friend of my father. Yeah, he was crying, he's broken, he's hearted. You have to come back to I think they were in Canada. You have to come back to Canada, you have to come back to your father, you have to. And he'll and she was like, yeah, but I love this man, but I don't know if he's the right one. And she was all confused. In the end, after this whole long conversation, she was like, right, I've decided I'm coming back with you. I want to live a Jewish life. I'm starting again. Hanukkah is about starting again as well. Renewal. Remember, they try to take away Rosh Chodesh from us. They try to take away Shabbos, the light of Shabbos. They try the Jewishness. They try to take away Bris Milah, holiness. Yeah. The Greeks. So we have renewal. She said, I'm starting again. We always start again. He looked up and he saw what night it was. She met in his hotel room and it was during Hanukkah. It was the 5th night of Hanukkah. And he was sitting in his room with this girl crying. And suddenly his whole life, the 3 times he'd gone to the Rebbe, suddenly the whole thing clicked. The 5th night of Hanukkah is very important to you. It just saved this whole girl's Yiddishkeit, this whole world. She ended up marrying a Jew and having loads of children. She ended up bringing up, holy children. She ended up giving nappies to her family. Yeah? And it was all because of that one night, the 5th night of Hanukkah, he was able to get hold of this woman. And it bridged the whole argument with Satmar and the Lubavitch, because in the end, we're beyond that. They work together, you know what I mean? So it's a very powerful story. And you see the 5th night of Hanukkah, but look now, just try and get your head around it. We're talking about a 60-year time period. 3 different meetings, and each one Rebbe met millions of people, and he was able to look at that Jew and say the 5th night of Hanukkah is very important to your life. Over 60 years. That's not human. That's total spiritual revelation. That's like a different world. And that's the kind of awe that's in the world of Tzaddikim. They're touched to a different world, the world of Olam Haba. They're in a world where they're attached beyond this story.
They can do special things, like you can resurrect people.
We're talking about the Rabbonim in Chazal. That's right. They say, what was the whole point of the...
They can do the golem thing.
I don't want to give up a Chassidus in this yeshiva. That's not my job. I'm not here to make anyone into Chassidim. You can be more than Orthodox till 120. I don't care. Do what you want. But I just want you to know that tonight is an important night for my calendar and for the whole Jewish people, because the way it's brought down like this from Tzaddikim, if it wasn't for the revelation of Chassidus, there'd be no one Jewish anymore. Forget about religious. And that's how crucial they say this revelation was, because what it did, basically you have to understand where the Jewish people were at. At the time the Balatanya was in prison, if he would have stayed in prison or been killed, and he wouldn't have done all his work, and these other Tzaddikim around that time, they would have all been knocked off, or whatever it was, and they never would have been revealed such a light in the world. There's no way we would have survived these last 200 years. Holocaust and liberalism and the whole, we would have never got through this. All the different isms, we never would have got through it. We'd be finished. It said the Maskilim, they try to make everyone not religious or even Jewish, they couldn't fight Hasidus. Hasidus was the one group they failed terribly with. They couldn't make any inroads. Why? Because they had the light of Kabbalah, the light of mysticism. The light of mysticism cannot be argued with intellectually. You can't take Bible proofs and unprove mysticism. because it's a reality. It's a spiritual fact on the earth that there's spiritual realities, and you can't argue with those kind of people because they're living it. They know Hashem. It's not like intellectual discussion over here. So you take some guys that are all intellect. You talk about the beginning of the class, not just keeping everything intellect. If you talk to someone at all intellect, you can if you outsmart him, if you're clever enough, you can even make someone like Aaron Kotler, Chas Shalom, or other people into anti-religious people. They tried. They tried to make Aaron Kotler. The Slobodka Rebbe saved him, but he was a complete genius. And if they would have got his genius on their side, who knows what would have come out of it? Chas Shalom. Another nuclear bomb like Einstein. Who would have known? Instead, came out Lakewood and Torah, the fire of Torah. You have to understand that the Jewish people are constantly under attack spiritually, and that was the Greek wisdoms to change us from being spiritual to make the Greek version of Torah mitzvahs, where it's just only intellect, just up here. It's all about how much I accomplish. It's not about what the point. Why am I doing it? It's not about the sincerity of it, the heart level. It's not about entirely bein elavdcha be'emes, to purify my heart to serve Hashem truly. So this whole idea of spreading that light in the world, when you look at the menorah, what your eyes look at, that's what you want. If you want money, it's because your eyes are too focused on it. If you want women, it's because your eyes are too much seeing it. If you want spirituality, you have to look at the candles of Hanukkah. And that will purify you. That will remind you of the true light, the light of the Tzaddikim, the light of the Or. That Yosef saw in this week's Parsha, this light of his father. He saw the face of Yaakov, and that protected him from doing a terrible sin. That was the light of the Tzaddik. That's what, in bottom line, that's what protected him, but it had to be on his heart. It had to be something that he'd internalized and made real, part of himself. It's not enough just to learn Torah intellectually. You have to internalize it onto the heart level, so it becomes real, it becomes part of your inner being. The spirituality should manifest in your whole being. We talked about that before. The bottom line is, with the night tonight, it's Yud Kislev. What happened was there was a revelation in the world, and it says, like Max said, it brought Tchias Mason. The Jewish people were asleep. The Jewish people were not. It was only a small minority of rabbis that were running the Jewish people at that time, and then slowly they were losing control of the Jewish people, and they were not able, majority of them, to come down into the level of the simple people. There was a massive divide between the rabbis and most of the Jewish people. And who filled that gap? The Maskilim, Haskalah, communism, socialism, as we see, where 70% of Jewish people are religious now. But what came and kept at least that 30% alive spiritually, hopefully, was Hasidus. Yeah? And at that time was a much larger percentage, obviously. The war knocked out a large amount of those people. If it's according to some figures of 10 million Jews died, a large amount of them were Hasidim. Hasidic Jewry got really smashed in the Holocaust. That was another miracle. How can they rebuild themselves after the war? And then you're reading that in the Kozenberger Rebbe story. You're reading how they rebuilt from nothing, from the ashes. They rebuilt these dynasties that are very strong now. But in the end,
nobody knew who he was.
I'll tell you something about our generation. There's a new Holocaust, spiritual Holocaust. So we got to realize that we got to rebuild again. What's to rebuild again? It's not about the beard anymore. It's not about the strimer, even though that can help sometimes. Bottom line, it's about the inner level, the inner connection, your inner world. Really, on a true level, I do get affected by my external surroundings, but I've tasted this. I'm just sharing with something, a deep experience. I've tasted that a Jew really has a whole inner world. Just like when you go on a good example of it, when you go on a computer, really a big screen, and you sort of enter it, you get so focused in it, you're like in that world in a way. Yeah? You watch a movie, you sort of get caught up in that world. In the truth, that is externalizing your inner world. The truth is, a person has an inner world, and he can learn how to talk to his inner soul, his inner world, and it's a very interesting, spiritual, enlightening, positive place. And I'll be honest, I'm very minimal where I'm holding on it, personally. Unfortunately, I've been externalized too much. But there are people still nowadays. There's a Rabbi Schwartz, who put out a book called Mishkan Evna, the Lavavi Mishkan Evna. In my heart, I will build a Mishkan for you. Beautiful sefer. And he's got a sefer in English, Know Yourself, Know Your House, Know Your Children. He's become very popularized. And his books are, you can see from where he's at, he's completely got an inner world. He has imagined the best movies you've ever imagined. He has that all running on the inside of him spiritually. An inner world, an inner involved world. And he's in there. And when you hear him speak, you can see it's not just an interesting speaker with intellectual, stimulating ideas. It's coming from a whole reality. He's built up an inner reality of truth. He's attached himself to his soul, and his soul's alive within him. So when you hear someone like that, it's a whole different thing. There's another Rebbe's around. I went to my Rebbe this week, and he looked at me, and he could see through all my facades. That's why when I go to a holy person, I feel a little bit exposed, because they're seeing into me. They're looking into my soul. They're not just looking at me physically, this guy with beard and hairs. They're looking at my soul, and they're helping me, guide me on my path. And there are people around like that. It's important to try and find them. But either way, whether you do or not, bottom line, you've got to make sure, as much as you can yourself, you try and attach that yourself to that inner light. And Hanukkah's a freebie. Hanukkah's a freebie. That's Hashem's kindness. For free, He's giving you that inner light. Yeah? So, we're at 10:30 already. We summed up the class, but I just want to put it back into the past. Was Yosef's inner light recognized by his brothers? Did they see him as a tzaddik? They did not know who he was. It wasn't just the beard. Someone saw me the other day. I went to meet with a Rabbi Kanchevitz, and I had a Shabbos with him, and he said he didn't recognize who I was from 12 years before, just because of the way I changed or transformed myself.